sees the memes of production, and the like and subscribe button. What are your thoughts on Stop Killing Games? I just don't understand why people keep bringing it up. Why do people keep bringing this up? Why do people keep talking about this? Because it's good? Okay. Pirate guy was mean? Okay. I don't know what that means. What are you talking about? Recent drama involving a guy called Pirate Software. Okay. What drama? Thousands of death threats. Pirate Software quits off-brand games over Stop Killing Games controversy. What is happening? And why am I reading this on Times of India? Game rant. There. You know it's a gamer site when it's dark mode, by default. Twitch streamer Pirate Software claims he was recently swatted and has received thousands of death threats. What did he do? The Stop Killing Games initiative aims to preserve access to online-only games after they are shut down. Okay? The hope is that video game companies will have to have some kind of end-of-life plan in place for their live service and other online-only games that leaves the content in some form of playable state, whether it's through fan-hosted servers, offline mode, some kind of single-player conversion, or whatever else. That seems doable, yeah? The initiative has seen a great deal of support from consumers, but has also faced some criticism, perhaps most notably from Pirate Software. My main issue with this initiative is that it is broad in its approach to change the industry, and the exact language of the initiative, not the FAQ, requests that all games stay a functional playable state. This is not feasible for all games at a technical level and could potentially restrict developers from making online-only games like MMOs, MOBAs, and user-generated content games in the future. But in WoW, can't you just do a private server? Like, all you would need to do for like an MMO is to give the players the tools, well, not legally. What do you mean? What's illegal about a private server? They come after your ass? WoW doesn't allow them? Okay, wouldn't that be the thing the law changes? Like, all you would need to do is allow the MMO or the online state or whatever to be replicable through privately hosted servers. And yeah, people might f around with the numbers over there, but who the f cares? Who cares? Isn't that fine? I think that seems fine to me. I don't see what the issue is. Like, if you have the development skills that are required to make an MMO, you probably have the skills required to set up the infrastructure for private server creation after the MMO goes offline. Like, that seems to me like like the easy part. I'm not a net developer or anything, but I feel like that's got to be easier than a MMO. The list is not exhaustive. It doesn't matter if you do or don't like those kinds of games. Effectively, this has the potential to restrict future developers from making kick-ass experiences because it locks away in their designs. But I don't think that's true. Like, okay, I like retro video games a decent amount. I like Mandalore Gaming. I see the work that Mandalore Gaming puts into restoring old games. And is it not true, like, oftentimes games that have online servers, those servers get shut down eventually, right? Eventually, they always get shut down. Give it a decade, give it two, they get shut down. But a lot of older games were designed so that even if those servers were shut down, you could still play with friends via, like, port forwarding or whatever. Like, you can create private servers, or you can, like, join games via LAN or direct connection. There's some way to reestablish this, you know? So it seems like it's totally doable. I don't really see the issue, I guess. Like, maybe they take down the servers for WoW. That would suck. And there's no way that wouldn't gut the game, because the point of an MMO is for it to be online. That's why it's called that. But you could still recreate the game in a private server and play around there. Get your friends together. You could be like, let's pretend the game never went down. There will never be new content, at least not without mods or whatever. But, like, you know, get all your friends to join it, and then they can all, you know, you can do the raid tiers or whatever. You want to play more Diablo 2? Okay, sure, fine. You know, just run the private server. It seems fine to me. Impossible for Pokemon Go? No, because you could just have all the spawns hosted locally. You could just say, like, our game is going offline. You will no longer be able to interact with other players, but now the Pokemon will spawn locally. Like, you won't be able to fight other people or whatever, but you can still, like, catch them and walk around and stuff. Can't really do raids then? Yeah, but the provision isn't saying the game has to be exactly the same after it goes offline. It's set up here. Through fan-hosted servers, offline mode, some kind of single-player conversion, or whatever else. That seems to me to be, like, totally doable. You know? That being said, did he really get thousands of death threats and get swatted just for disagreeing with his proposal? Even if he was a cunt about it or wrong about it, like, that doesn't justify... That's pretty crazy. He's a notorious liar? I don't know. This seems to me like this got escalated, like, way out of hand. Even if I disagree with him, like... And I know how gamers be. This is the thing originally. Oh, he's like a big YouTuber. 2.45 million subs, 1.3 million views. A lot of people disliked it. Okay, I'll watch it. You know, this is fun. Well, you take a look at water rights on the Colorado. Dude, Germany and Poland are having a border dispute. Okay, no, I want to learn about this.
Hi, my name is Jason Thor Hall, also known as Pirate Software Online.
You got a nice voice. I like that. There's misinformation in this video. Dog, that's every video I watch on stream. It's my job to parse it.
I've been in the gaming industry for about 20 years. I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment, then Amazon Game Studios, and now I own my own studio, Pirate Software, by the same name, which is an indie studio, and I've been here for about 8 years now. I also run a massive community. We've got about 180,000 people.
This video is from like 11 months ago, so this, I assume there's more recent stuff, but let me, I just want to see, I want to see.
Discord, and most of what I do is try to teach other people how to make games, teach them that they can make games, show them the tools to do so, and try to do everything without any paywalls or bullshit in the way. Okay. It's incredibly important to me that we keep making games and that the next generation has the tools to do so that our medium doesn't die out. And it never will. And that's the whole intention of all of this. So with that in mind, that community brought me this and tried to get me to sign it. And I don't want to. Hey, number one, I can't because I don't live in Europe. But number two, I wouldn't sign it even if I could. And I'm going to kind of go through this and try to explain the reasoning as to why that would be the case, without all of the internet hate machine that's grown up around it. So,
okay, now that I'm listening for a little longer, I think that he's bass boosting his voice, which does take away a bit from my earlier compliment. I can tell. I mean, you can be allowed to do that if you want.
Let's go into how this works and why this is an issue to me. First things first, what is an initiative? So an initiative is actually not law. It is something that you put together. The initiative seeks to prevent the remote disabling of video games by the publishers before providing reasonable means to continue functioning of said video games without the involvement from the side of the publisher. This isn't always possible in all video games, and it doesn't call out the specific practice that this is supposedly trying to defeat. It is incredibly vague and will damage all live service games. How would you keep League of Legends in a functional, playable state? You'd have to re-architect
private servers, right? It would just be like playing a game of Age of Empires 2, where you have like you can do direct port forwarding, or like there's dedicated servers and stuff. You could join and set it up. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty doable.
Protect the entire game. The game is what is called client server. So in client server models, there's a server and there's a client, and all of the math, all of the game, everything happens on the server. The client just displays it. And the reason we want to do it that way is so that you can't teleport around and do a billion damage. You don't.
Sure. You'd have to change how the game functions. Yeah, but okay, I'm not a game dev, but that can be fixed. If you have, like, basically all online games have information that's hosted client side and server side. And if you switch to private servers, then yeah, that private server would then be the server side, and that means people could cheat. But that's just something you have to accept. The owner of the server could hack? Sure. Then don't play on that server. Obviously, if the server is shut down for a game like League of Legends, that would be the end of the game in its current form. If you wanted to play it more, you would probably have to do so for, you know, like you would just join a game. Yeah, have none of you played like Gmod or TF2? Like you just join a server and then you're in the server and you play. That server could have people hacking. Then you could just leave and play a different one. It wouldn't be like how it is now. It'd be like old Battle.net rather than new Battle.net. You run a massive risk of hacking and cheating when you do this. This is how, when I was growing up, this is how all online games worked. Dedicated servers would sometimes have hackers and cheaters. Haven't you? Yeah, like, have you not played any online Source games? Like this Counter-Strike and Gmod and TF2 or yeah, old Call of Duty, any of these? I'm just saying, like, I know it's doable. It might be a worse version of how the game was when when the servers were run by the company, but that's just what it was like for years and years of my life. Your audience has only known matchmaking? Yeah, I guess. I guess that's true.
Trust the client. You trust the server. The client just displays what it's told, right? So if we wanted to re-architect this, we'd have to take all of that server logic, push it back out into the client, and somehow make that playable in a multiplayer-only video game. That doesn't make sense to me. So
Wait,
this is...
I don't understand.
If we wanted to re-architect this, we'd have to take all of that server logic, push it back out into the client, and somehow make that playable in a multiplayer...
No, it would be at the new server. Why you wouldn't run the math in the client? That doesn't make any sense. You would just make the new server. You have the dedicated server, and it would run that there. You can do this. The information that the server runs with isn't like magic or whatever. It's just data that you could create in the construction of a private server.
Only video game. That doesn't make sense to me. So this isn't going to work for all games. Why is it calling out all games? And it's really easy to say like, oh,
late to this, but netcoding is something you need to design from the start, depending on the type of network it's coded on. I have my experience in watching people mod and hack and rework games leads me to believe that if people wanted to, they could make League of Legends dedicated servers privately if the game went down. I think that is very doable. It might be a hassle, but that's life. And the idea of the Stop Killing Games initiative would be that future games would have to keep this in mind. So anybody who makes a future World of Warcraft or a future League of Legends or Valorant would have to go, okay, if we ever shut the servers down, like we need to have the netcoding in place so that people could run private servers if they wanted to, which to me is fair. I think that's a fair thing to expect. It's kind of fucked up that you can buy a video game and then it just goes offline. Like it's completely unusable. Like no longer can be engaged with in any way. A private server is not as good as the, real thing, but it's better than nothing.
That'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here. If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent set. Because now you're going to be setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense with people that may not understand the nuance of our industry, all in the name of saving games. I can't agree with that. So let's go into why this is happening.
Vaush, you're very uninformed on this. I always know I'm right when the people who are engaging directly with what I'm saying agree with me, and the people who disagree with me are just saying like you're wrong and they're folding their arms. That's the tell to me every time. And it's happened hundreds of times.
Right. So why did this start in the first place? What is the specific cases they've called out that are egregious? And they have one. It's The Crew. So action on The Crew. The video game The Crew, published by Ubisoft, was recently destroyed for all players and had a player base of at least 12 million people. Due to the game's size and France's strong consumer protection laws, this represents one of the best opportunities to hold a publisher accountable for this action. If we're successful in charges being pressed against Ubisoft, this can have a ripple effect on the video games industry to prevent publishers from destroying more games. First off, I don't like the idea in this that it has a player base of 12 million people. That is not how long-running games work. There is a large number of people that buy the game, and that player base slowly dwindles off until nobody is playing it anymore. If there's any costs associated with keeping the game online, which this was an online video game, then eventually it costs more to keep it online than it does to keep running it, right? So
I mean, nitpicky, right? It would have been like 12 million people have purchased the game.
Cost outweighs the amount of income for it. There are bad business practices that can occur in there. There are companies that will sell a online-only game as a single-player experience and kind of just put it into the TOS and hide it. But not all companies do that. When they do, we should be calling out that specific company, not all companies. So let's take a look at this and find out more about The Crew itself. And if we pull up their Wikipedia, we can see that The Crew was actually created in 2014, which, much to the hatred of all of us oldies on the internet, was 10 years ago. Oh. So this was an online-only racing video game developed by Ubisoft Ivory Tower and Ubisoft Reflections and published by Ubisoft. So all Ubisoft, right? With that in mind, it said it was a scaled-down recreation of the contiguous United States and included both role-playing and large-scale multiplayer elements. So it had a massive multiplayer component to it. It is an online-only service-based game, and they shut it down 10 years later. On March 31st, 2024, Ubisoft shut down the game's servers, rendering the game unplayable, which is normal for live service games. The only thing that I can see in here that could be a problem is if they posted as not an online-only experience. But everything that I found online shows that the game was always marketed as online only.
I don't think that something being online only means that it's good, that it can be shut off and no longer nobody can access it anymore. I don't understand this logic at all. Like, if you buy a game that's marketed as online only, that means that you should just accept that it's going to go offline and you won't be able to play it anymore at some point. And also, it would not be a good thing to improve on that state of affairs. Shouldn't we strive for a better normal?
If you're going to be buying an online only game, that means it can only run when it's online. And if the servers need to shut down in the future, far in the future, it makes sense to me for the access to that game to be cut if it's online only. If it's
why not just open the game up to create private servers, you know? Like, what's wrong with that? If they've shut down the servers, that means they're not selling the game anymore. So there's literally no loss in just going, okay, we're not hosting this anymore, but if you want to play this game, here is the, like, pushes the entire contiguous United States over at you. There it is. There's the, petabyte of information. Okay, you want to host a server, go for it, bucko. It'd be a little bit of a pain, but Nintendo are infamous for not letting people play their old games. Yeah, but not because they're online only, but rather because Nintendo just knows they can keep re-releasing stuff over and over because their game quality is so good and their games tend not to age poorly, so they can just resell me specifically Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door 3 times or Ocarina of Time 3 times, and they know I'll keep buying it. So, like, slightly different, but Nintendo.
Single player experience that has online only functionality specifically just to shut down the game in the future, and the online only doesn't actually add any gameplay functionality, I'd agree with you. That's a shitty business practice, but that's really rare. And in the specific cases where it does happen, we should call out that, not just all games and not all live service games. Further, there's more context to this too. The Crew itself came out in 2014, but it actually had a sequel that came out in 2018, and then it had another sequel that came out in 2023. And if we go to the Crew's SteamDB, which again is not going to be all of the player base for this, it's only going to show the ones who were playing it through Steam. It was on multiple platforms. And we look at the max here, it did start out with a sizable amount of community, and then it degraded. And it had a major drop-off in 2018, which is the same year that it launched a sequel. This is normal.
I don't understand the relevance of it at all. It costs the company nothing to make it open to other people if they want to run it on a private server. I just don't understand the argument at all. What if a person wants to play the original The Crew? They can't. That's it. It was a piece of art that used to exist, and now it doesn't. It's not accessible. It means people are less likely to buy the new game. That is true, but that's a fucked up justification. Like, you bought the first game, now the company gets to run into your house and smash it with a hammer so that you're more likely to buy the second one? That's bad. Like, that's really anti-consumer. You know,
when a sequel comes out, a lot of the player base, if the sequel doesn't,
there's a cost, time to convert it, which is making the company zero money. I just don't believe, I do not believe it's that difficult. If you're just turning it over to the public, like, just open source it. If you're no longer selling the game, you can just turn it over to the public. Like, you're taking the game away from them effectively when you're no longer hosting the servers. You know what? Maybe always online games shouldn't even exist. Maybe it's weird from the get-go to have a game where one day you could boot it up and then the opening window that pops up is like, this game doesn't exist anymore. This is now a dead brick of data on your computer and it can never be played again. Like, okay, I don't know. Seems bad.
Suck. We'll move over to it. And then the servers effectively die. You can't run a live service game on this few players.
Yeah.
You can't. Most of the time, especially not if there's anything else that goes into it.
And no, that makes sense. I don't fault the company for shutting down the servers. It costs money to keep servers open. I'm just saying that it feels bad to me that you could make a piece of art inaccessible to the world indefinitely. You know, I don't like that.
Go into that anything else, and we could see that there was license problems. So on December 14th, 2023, Ubisoft delisted The Crew and its expansions from digital.
The best case scenario, by the way, is that this, in the European Union, at least, ends up opening the door up to this conversation for other forms of media. Don't you guys think it's a little bit fucked up that TV shows and movies can become lost media because the licensing expires on the streaming services they exist on? Literally, like, there's so much art and information out there that's getting removed from existence for literally no reason. Like it's purely just an artificial economic and social, like, bureaucratic up that's creating this. It's artificial scarcity, but it's artificial scarcity over art that's already been put out to the public. It was already there, you know? There are, like, you know, I think it's pretty bad, and I think there normalizes a lot of really bad attitudes towards both the consumption and the creation of that art. Open source means yielding many secrets of the industry, such as engine code assets, which can lead to copyright infringement, which means wasting time with more lawyers. No, I'm Kaguya, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that. I do not think that in the, like, making games always capable of being played in some form, even after the servers go offline, would lead to a legal or infrastructural or financial nightmare for companies in the future. I just don't believe that. I think there is a way to plan with the end in mind there.
Platforms suspended sales of microtransactions and announced that the game's servers would shut down on March 31st. So they gave them 3 months. Usually I would say, hey, 6 months is probably a better deal, but if they're going to do 3 months, they're going to do 3 months. The only thing that I'd be interested outside of that is if there was a contractual obligation to do more than 3 months and they didn't follow it, if it was in the terms of service or not. Citing upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. What were those licensing constraints?
More importantly, you don't even have to open source it, just release it as a blob. I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't really know what the difference is. I thought open source was when you said, okay, my understanding of open source is when I download StarCraft 2 onto my computer, I can see the files for StarCraft 2. They're right there. I can see all the ones and zeros. Don't I have it? Isn't the source open to me now? Don't talk to me.
Well, it turns out that all of the cars in the game were licensed from the car companies. And a 10-year running game likely means that they had license to them for 10 years. And that means that it would likely reopen.
You admitting that proves my point you're uninformed on this? You acknowledging what I just said proves that you're getting owned by a guy who doesn't know what open source means.
And for negotiation. Now, understand that's speculation, but I've seen this type of a deal many times in the industry while I've been working in it. So it's not unlikely. If you're going to have to renegotiate on a game that has so few players and is not turning a profit anymore, you're probably just going to forego the renegotiation. And if those servers are aging, you're not going to want to recreate that infrastructure. And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single player. Well, I've explained that that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. When you already have sequels out and the game has basically no players left anyway, it makes more sense to just move on. I don't find that to be a problem from the developer perspective, and I understand that people find that to be a problem from the player perspective. These are two different ideologies, and that's okay to have two different ideologies.
I don't know. This seems kind of like meandering centrist bullshit to me.
I just won't. So now we're going to go to Ross, otherwise known as Accursed Farms, the creator of this initiative, and one of the ones that's pushing it the most online. I'm going to let him say exactly why he thinks that this will go through very easily and why it is important. And then
how would the game deal with licensing? I mean, if they've shut the servers down, they're not licensing the game anymore, right? Like, do you mean like merchant stuff? Because even if there are World of Warcraft private servers, that doesn't mean that WoW and the affiliated stuff isn't still the property of Blizzard. It just means that people have their own servers for it.
I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with it.
Comes law in the EU? Yeah, it might be. Now, it's not a guarantee, but I think if we get the signatures, this passes. Why do I say that? Well, it's a few factors.
Do you think that'll stop lawyers from suing anyway? Suing over what? What would they sue over? Okay, you can run dedicated servers for a bunch of old games. What's the, like, legal issue? What's the, what legal problem arises? Okay, say there's a video game that was released in like 1997 and the online servers shut down in 2004, and then people were like, dude, this game was goated, okay? We're gonna like make our own servers and then people can play on those, and you just need like a little forum where people exchange their, like, you know, port forwarding info or their passcodes or whatever. And then they play that. So what is the legal problem with that? Intellectual property and copyright law? I don't understand. What is the legal problem with that? In the example here, if you were relaying the server code, it would violate licensing agreements since contractors extend a server operation. You can't contribute to this. Okay, this sounds like a problem for capitalists. Like, wouldn't this just be fixed by changing the law? Like, the point of the thing is to change the law. Like, you're not describing a logistical problem, you're describing something that could be fixed by changing the law, which is the point of this. So I don't understand what the fuck Yeah, so why are we talking? Like you're saying, well, we can't just stop killing games. You would need theoretically for some kind of initiative to pass that would change the law around this sort of thing in order for it to work. Like the solution is to make community servers explicitly legal. Yeah, that sounds cool. Using WoW as an example, the problem is that it violates the terms of service you agree to without reading the moment you open and install the client. Yeah, so just like change that, right? It's not like it doesn't affect WoW for there to be private servers. It just doesn't. It doesn't affect the game at all. The only situation in which I could see that being an issue is if somebody started charging others to access their private server to play the game. Even that, I guess. I mean, I think that's like cunty, but I don't think that should be a legal issue, right? Like the company doesn't run the servers anymore. There's literally no way to join through the company's servers. I guess I just don't understand what I don't know. This seems like such an easy problem to solve if the law was just on our side.
Politicians like easy wins, and this doesn't require them to do much at all. And unless it involves gambling or protecting children, politicians generally don't care about video games. So this isn't of big consequence to them or most of their constituencies.
I'm going to stop it there for a moment. The assertion that politicians just like easy wins, so this legislation will go through, but the politicians don't care about a multi-billion-dollar global industry and that it doesn't matter to their constituencies is incredibly absurd to me. I don't think this...
That's not really true. A lot of politicians are pretty old and out of touch. It's true that they don't really care much about video games. If they did, they would be virtue signaling over like gotcha and gambling laws, like loot crate, you know? Yeah, a lot, like this is actually like a culture divide. A lot of politicians are just too old to really like know much about them. Not to say they're not affected by lobbyists, but, you know.
This is the right direction at all for a movement like this. I think it's incredibly damaging and it makes our entire industry look bad, both on the player side and the developer side. If we're going to be putting forward anything that may eventually turn into legislation, it should be passing because it's the right thing to do for consumers and developers and that there's some kind of a middle ground, not just because it's an easy win and politicians don't care. This sets us off on a completely wrong foot.
EU law is already unclear on a lot of this practice anyway.
And that's dangerous. If we're going to be setting precedent, which could change the way that law works all the way down the road, then we need to be sending the right message, which this is sending a vague message that doesn't cover the actual problem. So this...
In Belgium, we have anti-loot crate laws. Yeah, that's good. I personally just don't think microtransactions should be allowed at all. You could argue like, well, they should be allowed for cosmetics, but not for stuff related to gameplay. But unfortunately, that's really difficult to legislate. Okay, what if you're playing a tactical shooter and then you can buy a camo suit, or just a suit that's like a darker green that blends in better with the environment, so you're less easy to hit. Oh, it's $20. Oh, but it's just a skin. Oh, but it helps. I think microtransactions just shouldn't exist. Subscription models are fine because that's all up front, but it's just anything involving gambling, paid battle passes. How do free games make money? They don't. They have to cost money. I think the freemium gaming has been a blight on the industry. Okay. You know what the best game on mobile is right now? Balatro, and it costs $15. And you should pay for it.
Is not a win to me. This is a huge risk.
And we would be making it easy for them to settle it. It falls in line with other consumer practices. You know how when you buy something, you're generally allowed to keep it?
In the case of live service games, in the terms of service for those, you are not buying the game. You're buying a license to the game. And that's the part that...
Yeah, and that's gay. And we should change that. You should still have access to it afterwards. Like, the argument here is like, things are bad, so that's how it is. I don't really get it. I don't see why we should keep that.
It's really different here. If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms. But if we're under this weird idea that we need to get rid of all live...
Bro, just don't play live service games. Bro, just don't play live service games. Just don't play games where your only mode of interaction is going through a server, which is like all multiplayer games. Because it's not just live service games, right? It's also what about a game like Repo or Lethal Company, where people overwhelmingly play online, but you can still play single player? What happens if the game goes offline? You can still play it single player, but then for some reason you can't just create a dedicated server to play with your friends? Wouldn't that suck? Like, even though it'd be the easiest thing to do, you couldn't just like make a server, give all your friends the passcode to it, and then just there, kablamo. You know, Repo and Lethal Company are peer-to-peer. Oh, okay. Well, it shows what I know. But okay, imagine where they weren't. You understand what I mean, right? Like, okay, Diablo 2. I know Diablo 2 isn't peer-to-peer. You want to play with your friends, you know, do Uber's runs nonstop, that kind of thing.
Service games, or damage that practice in any way to keep in line with consumer policies. It is in line with consumer policies. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be there in the first place. So this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You're not buying the game, you're buying a license to the game. In the niche cases where a studio is trying to sell a game as if you are buying it or purchasing it or using that language specifically, and they give you a live service game instead, I agree that should change. That language should change. You are not purchasing the game. You are not buying it.
All right, I think we get the gist from this guy. I don't know. I don't think he should be sent death threats. I think that's kind of crazy. I think he's just sort of doing a bit of capitalist realism. I don't know.
I have no doubt most of you have noticed over the last 10 or 11 months I've been a lot happier. Glowing, really radiant. You can tell probably just from my voice alone and this striking smile. So what is the secret to this newfound happiness of mine? The one trick caught me by surprise. That was a subversion of my expectations bigger than Game of Thrones Season 8.
Yeah, Hutcher, I did. I think it's really hilarious to me that that entire community is so butt mad at me for putting out a video 10 months ago about their stuff and then not being refuted, and now it's my fault that everything is going wrong for them.
I cannot believe his ego. His ego is so out of control, I feel like he's only a week or two away from exclusively referring to himself in third person, like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that's the truth, because Pirate Software said so.
My first encounter of him.
It's not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. Now, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's incredible.
I feel like he and Charlie kind of talk similar a little bit.
Stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass.
It might be because he's got a fake deep voice and Charlie has a real deep voice, so they kind of like, they're hitting the same tenor a little bit.
The whole thing. That sounds stupid as shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Ross and his community that are actually the assholes here. Brother, come on, you can't possibly be calling the wambulance with a side of French fries here.
All right, I don't want to watch any more of this. I don't think he should be sent lots of death threats. But I do think that is pretty dumb. Like, that argument doesn't really work for me. Lots? Okay, so he's not the most reliable source on the subject. I don't know. The initiative almost failed because of him. Well, it's clear that it worked out. I mean, it's gotten pretty big, you know? You should see Asmon talk about stop killing games. Should I? I don't think I should, actually. I don't think that's true. I don't think I need to do that. I don't think that's important to me. Part of the reason it took off was because the drama of people responding to Pirate Software. Huh. All right, well, yeah, I don't know. I am in general very big on consumer advocacy, right to repair. I think that all microtransactions in video games should be illegal. Stuff like that, you know? So yeah. This seems like a slam dunk to me. As long as the legislation born of it is good. We keep going and watch his second video where he doubles down. No. Even for free games? Absolutely for free games. Freemium games are the most predatory ones. You like gacha games? Yeah, of course. Those are the #1 games that need to not have any microtransactions. You would have to make it for future games because obviously it wouldn't be fair for the law to shut down existing games that are free but can only exist because of microtransactions. So yeah, in future games, you know, I'd be okay if we shut down the existing games. Me too, to be honest, but you know, here's the game dev response. Dude, whatever. They always complain about consumer rights. Video Game Europe's case is that it can be too expensive for devs and publishers to offer private servers or single-player modes in games that lose online multiplayer support, and that open or fan-supported versions of these games could present legal liabilities for companies, particularly when it comes to cybersecurity and content moderation. I just don't believe that. Yeah, I just don't believe that. I think that if the law is changed, I think this could be worked around. Yeah, why would you need to do any content moderation? You shut down the servers. You're not managing the game anymore. So, you know, other people are running the servers and they're drawing dicks everywhere. That's not your problem. Cybersecurity, eh. My ultimate, like, final Super Saiyan pro-consumer belief is that after a certain length of time, some properties like games or movies or TV shows should just be available for free by default, or they like after a given length of time of them not being available through any legal domain. Like if you can't access them via streaming, or like they're only available on the PS2, shit like that. Because functionally, people just pirate that shit anyway, and it just seems dumb that in this weird legal gray zone area about like, if you can't buy them, they're free. Yeah, the right for companies to hold on to those properties for decades so they can re-release them at full charge later. That shit sucks. That's so sociopathic. I hate that. And I hate Nintendo for doing it. Nintendo could make their entire Wii U and earlier library for free, just available like by default if they wanted to. Well, I overstate a little bit. They could choose core classics from those and have them available in the online shop for $3. Why don't they do that? So they can re-release it for $60 in slightly higher definition with the next console generation. I just don't. It's just bad. Yeah, I get it. It makes them a lot of money. They have enough money already. They sit on a huge pile of cash. Yeah, Disney does it as well. 100%. Nintendo's been caught using ROMs from pirate sites for their own online republishing of classic games. That's really funny. I haven't heard of that. That's really funny. Doesn't all IP become public domain after a number of years? Yeah, I wouldn't count on you being alive to see it. We just got the original Steamboat Willie. The eShop has a lot of games. They're taking the Netflix approach now and just have the games available through their service. Yeah, that's evil. I know. You pay like $12 a month or something so you can access games that they made 30 years ago. I know they won't because they want to make infinite money forever, but it should not be legal. They made these games ages ago. It's not difficult to just have them run. Your Switch or Switch 2 or whatever could just have all of it available. You could play whatever you wanted. And people wouldn't buy new games. Well, then maybe they could make some new games rather than continuing to update all the old ones. You know, that's the main reason Nintendo does this, by the way, right? Because they know you wouldn't buy Mario Kart 78 if they hadn't made Mario Karts 1 through 77 borderline impossible to play with like a continuous fan base. Same with EA and 2K for sport games. Yeah. I gotta piss. But then after that, I suppose I'll read donos. I am so goddamn tired today. The answer to your woes is piracy. Yeah, piracy is easy to talk about if you're like a nerdy tech something, but we're talking about like long-term cultural preservation, you know? Also, like, pardon me for being old-fashioned about this, but I think that developers should be proud of their game library. When I think of a developer that has a healthy relationship with the consumer, whatever, I think of like, here's our game, here's our next game, here's our next game. And then over the course of 20 years or something, they've got 4 or 5 or 6 games out, and you can go play any one. You know? It's like that more with computer games, where, I don't know what a good example would be. Maybe Amnesia, the Penumbra games, Larian Studios. Sure, yeah, you've got Baldur's Gate 3, and you've got Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and so on, and you can just play them, you know? Not this weird game of keep away where you're trying to manipulate customer expectations by like taking advantage of planned obsolescence and the fact that the older consoles won't be able to play the new ones, but the new consoles won't have those old ones. And it's just like, just release the games, and if they're good, people will play them. I don't know. I like how id Software has released the source code to their older games. Yeah, and if you want an example of how good things can work out if you treat the consumer well, the original Doom and Doom 2 to this day have an incredibly vibrant, thriving community and cultural impact because they turned over the source code, and now you can just play those games for free. Sadly, the source code is under a non-commercial license. Well, you can play. They recently re-released it as well, and made plenty of money doing so. But you know, regardless, you know, you can just go and play it, and it boldened the game substantially. You know. It's made it much more prominent. And Doom 1 and 2, by the way, are goated. If you're playing a modern mouse look version of Doom, I'm not saying like you should be able to look up and down. I'm just saying I like mouse look, okay? I'm a mouse look kind of guy. But as long as you've got mouse look, Doom 1 and 2 are fantastic. Better than the vast majority of shooters that come out today. There's a reason it's as good, or it's as well remembered as it is. You like Quake or Doom more? Look, the original Quake is good. Quake 2 sucks. No, it doesn't suck. I don't like it as much. I'm sorry. I just don't think John Carmack had the creative vision, the map making, I don't think he could pull it together, you know? I didn't like Quake 2 as much. I love Quake 1, but Doom clears. Doom clears. Doom clears. I agree Doom 2's level design is not as good, but it's better than Quake 2's. Doom 2 introduced the super shotgun. Yeah, it's crazy because when I think of the levels that I most fondly remember in Doom, they're usually in Doom 1, but then I think, like, there's no way you play that shit without the super shotgun. Doom 3 was survival horror. We don't talk about Doom 3. Super shotgun obsoleted the chain gun entirely? No, hard disagree. No. The chain gun let you consistently stagger basically anything you were firing at. Was way more accurate at a distance. No, I strongly disagree. Also, when you're on the more difficult maps on Nightmare or Ultra Violence or whatever, and you have to manage your ammunition, so you have to be careful about, like, well, you want to target that guy from the distance, but not the guys next to him because you don't want to waste ammo on them. It's a good sniper. Have you played Evolution of Plutonia? I've played both, yeah. Okay, sorry, I gotta read these. I gotta go soon. Dude, why am I so out of it today? It kind of sucks. Oh, I gotta exercise. I gotta get back into lifting weights. Of course, Kaguya. I don't mind disagreeing at all. I acknowledge that I'm not an expert in this subject. I do like some pushback.